Hi there and welcome to Hyundai Power Equipment. My name is Adrian and today we're going to look at some simple servicing on your HYM400P lawnmower. Let's start with changing the air filter. The air filter is located inside this box on the front left hand side of the engine from the operator's position. To access the air filter, push down on the two tabs on the top of the box and simply hinge it down out of the way. You can remove the foam air filter quite simply, you just pull it out from the back of the box. To replace with a new air filter, simply pop it back into the same location, put in the rectangular filter in the rectangular hole, and then close up the box back to where it was. Make sure that the two tabs click up behind the bar so that it's fully closed. And that's how to change your air filter. So we'll move on to replacing the spark plug. The spark plug is located here behind the spark plug cap on the front left hand side of the engine. First thing we need to do is gently remove the spark plug cap. Take care not to pull it out roughly, because there is a danger that you'll pull the cap from the spark plug lead. So just gently pop the spark plug cap away from the spark plug and we'll just tuck it to one side. And this will reveal the spark plug. So using the box spanner or spark plug spanner that was provided with the mower, simply place the spanner over the top of the spark plug, making sure that it is fully down over the hexagon, and you can loosen the spark plug. I'll just unscrew it a couple of turns with a spanner and then finish it off with my fingers. So the spark plug is here and I'll remove it with my fingers. To replace with a new spark plug, screw the spark plug back in, lining it up with the hole, and screw it in with your fingers. And as you can see, it screws most of the way in with my fingers. Don't be tempted to use the spark plug spanner to start the spark plug back in the hole, because there would be a danger of you cross-threading the spark plug, which you can't do if you're doing it with your hand. So that's the spark plug screwed back in loosely and tightened down. Now bring the spark plug cap back over the top of the spark plug and push it home firmly, and as you heard, a little click at the bottom. So that's how to replace your spark plug. Let's move on to changing the engine oil. Now, to remove the engine oil, you need to pour it out of the filler neck tube. So firstly, remove the dipstick. It's going to be a little bit awkward, this one, and you probably need a little assistance. So what you do is run the lawnmower for perhaps 10 minutes first, just to get the engine oil warm so that it's nice and runny, and there's a greater likelihood of getting more engine oil out. And then if you have an assistant with a funnel, piece of pipe, a container, something like that, you can simply tip the lawnmower up on its side, pouring all of the engine oil out until you've got the lot. Far simpler than that is the way I do it, and I use this little vacuum extractor bottle. So what I would do at this stage is push the end of my tube right down into the engine and simply use the vacuum pump to suck the oil out. This one actually hasn't got any oil in it. And that would suck the oil out through the tube and into my bottle. And these are readily available from our parts department. So that's the oil removed. So having removed the engine oil, I'll simply fill it back up to the correct level. And you need a 1030 or 1540 grade engine oil. So I'll gradually top this back up, allowing time for the oil to run down the filler neck, and I'll use my dipstick by just placing it on top of the hole and removing it and checking the oil level. And the oil level should be at the very top of this cross-hatched area where you'll see the line or the word max. It says min at the bottom, a cross-hatched area, and then max. So allow it time to run down, just dip your dipstick into the hole, and when the oil level reaches max, that's your oil filled. And then simply replace the oil filler cap, rotating it clockwise, and make sure that it's tightened down firmly. And that's how to change your engine oil. Let's move on to removing the fuel or petrol from your lawnmower. Now you may ask why you would need to do that, and I shall explain. Modern fuels go stale very quickly, and should you be leaving your lawnmower for a long period of time, there is a high likelihood that the fuel will go stale and your lawnmower will not start. So I shall show you how to remove the fuel. Now normally we'd recommend that you let the lawnmower completely run out of fuel before leaving it for a long period, and then draining the residual final drops of fuel out of the carburetor, and I shall show you how to do that. If you haven't done this and you've got fuel in your lawnmower and in the fuel tank and you've left it for a period of time, I shall show you how to remove that as well. So if you have a quantity of fuel in your fuel tank, the simplest way to remove it is to use the vacuum pump as I demonstrated earlier, by placing the vacuum pump down into the bottom of the fuel tank and then withdrawing the fuel via the vacuum, and it'll come down the tube and into the bottle. So that's the simplest way. If you have fuel in the fuel tank and you haven't got a vacuum bottle, you can drain the whole system down through the carburetor, and we shall move on to that next. So to remove the fuel from the carburetor, whether you have an empty fuel tank or a full fuel tank, it's done via this hole here, which is under this bolt. Now there is a bolt underneath the carburetor which points vertically upwards, and this one points out towards you, and it's this one we're concerned with. If you had a lot of fuel in your fuel tank, you're going to have a fair quantity of fuel come out of this hole. It will drain down through the system and come out of this hole. In that case, you would probably need a small funnel, piece of pipe, to decant it as it flows out into a suitable container. Let's say that you've drained your fuel tank and that the only quantity of fuel that's going to come out is what's in this float bowl here, which is about an egg cup full of fuel. So you would undo the little nut here, which is actually a bolt, and it has a fibre washer on the underneath. You're just loosening a touch more, there we go. Now at this point fuel may well start to drip. Because it's only going to be a small quantity, it's actually tighter than I thought it was going to be. Here we are. Oh, another half a turn. There we go. And I've removed the little bolt. Now, if there is fuel in the carburetor and in the fuel tank, it will now come gushing out through that hole. So you will need a funnel, piece of pipe, something like that, into a suitable container. If it's just a carburetor, a small amount of absorbent paper will do the job of soaking up the fuel as it comes out. Now you will see that there's a little fibre washer, in this case it's red, sometimes they're black, on the little bolt. Make sure you don't lose that fibre washer. And sometimes they can stick to the underside of the float bowl, so just be aware of that. So once it's fully drained and you know you have no more stale fuel in your system, simply replace the little bolt. Hold on, I know I'm right in shot here, there's no other way I can do this. So we'll replace the little bolt. And tighten it down firmly. So that's it, that's the fuel drained from your lawnmower. So we'll move on to the adjustment of the OPC cable. Now the OPC cable is the cable that comes to the handle up the top here. And as you can see, this one has quite a bit of free play in it. Now the problem with this is, if it's too slack, as you can see this one is really slack, I can move the cable back and forward, nothing happening. The problem is that when you pull back on this handle, the cable may not pull far enough to make the little micro switch on the bottom, which allows the engine to start. So basically it'll always be in the stop position, and it will never allow, even though you pull back on the handle, the engine to start. So the symptom being, the engine won't start. So I'll show you how to adjust this cable to the correct tension. And what we're looking for is no movement in this handle. The OPC cable terminates here on the side of the engine and comes in, which is on the right hand side of the engine. And as you can see, there's quite a lot of slack in that cable. So to adjust it, what I need to do is move this steel part here with the threads on back in relation to this bracket. So what I'll do is, using a 13mm spanner, sometimes need two 13mm spanners for this, I'll just loosen off the pair of nuts, and I'll loosen this front nut a few turns away. Then I'll just pull back on this cable by hand until I feel resistance, not really going on it. Put that front nut to and the back nut to the bracket, and I'll test my tension. Again, I'll go back to the top handle and see if there's any free play, and once I'm happy that it's there, I'll then retighten these two lock nuts against the bracket. That's it, and we'll go back and check the handle at the top. So now that we've adjusted it, as you can see, I've probably got, without really going for it, 3 or 4 mil of deflection in that cable, no free play in the handle, and it still operates nicely. So that's pretty much correct, and that's the adjustment of the OPC cable. So next I'm going to show you how to remove the lawnmower blade itself and replace it. Now, the lawnmower blade is underneath the lawnmower, as you would expect, and probably the simplest way for me to do this would be to tip the lawnmower onto its side. Now, the best time to do this is when it's got no engine oil in it and no fuel in it, and you can remove those in the way that I showed you earlier on. And another little safety note, because there's a danger that we will rotate the blade, and should, when you tip it over, the handle or the OPC handle get caught on something and pull back, when you're rotating the blade by hand, there is a danger the lawnmower will start. So what we'll do is just remove the spark plug cap, and now there is no way that the lawnmower can inadvertently start. So let's tip the lawnmower up on its side, and I'll show you how to do it. So I'm all safe, I've got no oil and fuel in it, and I've removed the spark plug cap, and now I'm going to remove the lawnmower blade. What you will see is that there are direction of rotation arrows on the bottom of the blade, and the number of the blade is stamped into the bottom of it here. The first thing I need to do is remove this bolt in the middle of the blade. Now, I strongly recommend that you wear gloves for this, because the blades can be quite sharp. So I'll just undo this bolt, and I've got a 1/2 inch ratchet with a 17mm socket. Loosen it off, and I'll unscrew it. Now, you will note that there's a washer, and the yellow part here is a fibre washer behind the main steel washer. So just take a mental note of the way it goes. Fibre washer, steel washer, then the bolt. And this steel washer is actually domed outwards towards the ground on the bottom, which would be the ground side, and hollow on the other side. So remember that as well. Because typically what happens is you take the bolt out, and I'll demonstrate, and the washers fall everywhere and you don't know which way to put them. So, okay. Another note, you'll see that the blade driver here has 2 circular embossed parts sticking out. This one has a flat here and this one here. So the blade will go on that way, it will go on that way, which is absolutely fine, it doesn't make any difference. But if you tried to put the blade on upside down, you can't get it on either way. So a bit of a fail-safe there, the blade can only go on this way. Another thing that may happen when you take the blade off is that this hub will fall off as well, or blade carrier. Now, I'll just show you what's involved should yours fall off, because in the shaft here you have a key, that'll typically fall off, and if you take this off, inside here is a washer as well, a spacer, which will come off. So when you put this back on, make sure the spacer is down inside there. The key sits in the keyway on the mower shaft here, and when you replace this, if you see the keyway there and the key on the top, just line the two up and make sure you pop it back on again. So to replace with a new blade, again, it'll only go on one of two ways, that way or that way. Either one doesn't matter. So it guarantees your blade is the right way up. So we'll take our bolt, the domed side towards the bolt head with a hollow inside, back on with the fibre washer, and we'll put the bolt back in the hole. I'll just tighten it down with my fingers and tighten it back up. Oops, daisy. With a 17 socket in my 1/2 inch drive ratchet. And I'll just make sure that that bolt is very tight. If you do have a torque wrench, the torque setting for this bolt is available from our service department. And that's how to change the blade on your lawnmower. I often get asked how to replace the pull starter on your lawnmower. So for this lawnmower, I'll release the pull cord, and what we need to do is to remove these 3 nuts here around the outside of the pull starter. So I've got a little 10mm nut driver, and I'll just undo the 3 nuts, taking care not to drop them while I'm doing it. So that's 1, 2, the last one, 3. So that's the 3 removed, and I can simply lift the pull starter away. And to replace with a new pull starter, it will go on in any one of 3 orientations, but because the pigtail is up this handle, we know that the pull starter has to go on this way. Simply drop it back into position, replace the 3 nuts, just get them started with my fingers. There we go. And again, using my little nut driver, tighten them back fully down. There we are. And I'll just reconnect the pull starter back into the pigtail up the top here. And that's the pull starter replaced. For any of the parts that I've used today, they are readily available from our parts department. Simply call 01646 6878 80. For more information on this or any of our other products, simply visit www.hyundaipowerequipment.co.uk. Well, I do hope you found this demonstration useful. I've been Adrian, and happy mowing.